Welcome to Talkin Tires, the podcast that delves deep into the world of tires. Join us as we explore everything from the science behind the manufacturing to the latest innovations in tire recycling. Our aim is to provide you with a comprehensive understanding of tires, including how they work, how to maintain them, and how to dispose of them responsibly. Whether you're a seasoned mechanic, curious car enthusiast, or an avid recycler, Talkin Tires is the perfect podcast for anyone who wants to learn about the essential component of the modern vehicle and heavy equipment. So buckle up and join us for an informative and engaging journey into the world of tires. Okay, welcome to another episode of Talkin Tires. I'm your host, Craig Hunter, president of Tire Reclaim, and I've got with me Brandon Machell, the national sales manager for Setco Tires, and also the owner of Setco Tires, Buck Hill. We're really excited to have you guys. Thanks for being here. And basically, Talkin Tires is about tires and technology, what's coming down the pike. And this is our first opportunity. We've had multiple guests from tire sales, passenger, semi, and loader tires. And we've had Crumb Rubber facility companies and owners come in and talk. This is our first opportunity to have a full-blown manufacturer of tires and solid tires, which solid tires is not something I have a lot of knowledge on myself. So I'm super excited to learn more about that, learn more about you guys and your company. So let's go ahead and get started. So welcome. And why don't you tell us a little bit about Setco?
You bet. Thanks for having us, Craig. So Setco, we are a manufacturer of solid rubber tires, also rubber cutting edges. The only solid rubber tire made in the United States. We're actually here in our warehouse in Idabel, Oklahoma. Buck here can tell you a little bit more about the history of Setco, but we've been around since 1988 and happy to be here.
Awesome.
So I'm a third generation guy. My granddad started in the 30s, retreading, repairing, A model tires, 616s. There's a great picture in my office of my granddad standing very proudly in front of a bunch of presses. My dad grew up in the business, went out to California, taught school a few years, and came back to it. And about the year I was born, probably around 64. It's really the only business I've ever known. Even when I went to college, I worked for Goodyear. So, tires is about it for me.
Right. Yeah, I did. I was able to find an article. It's a few years old, but congratulations. It obviously the business is a booming success. If you have newspaper articles that I can look up and learn a little bit more about the successes and the business there in Idabel, Oklahoma, which you've stayed local, and tell us a little bit about your town and your place there. This podcast is really, it's about you guys and your company as well as the products that you put out. So, tell me about that. You have a lot of key people there, I'm sure, that you're proud of, and your manufacturing it could not run without a hitch without some good people around you.
Well, it's somewhat challenging being as remotely located as we are. If you look us up, we're about 200 miles from Tulsa, 200 miles from Little Rock, probably about 185 miles from DFW Airport. So it's a little bit tough to draw talent in here. And that's as we continue to grow and the quality of our manufacturing people become greater and greater, that becomes more and more of the problem. The one thing, however, is this is the first mountains that you get to out of DFW. So we actually have probably about 44,000 visitors a weekend here. When I was a kid, you could go up the lake anytime, which is only about 25 miles from here. Beautiful. Get a boat slip. You can't do that anymore. The place has been overran with basically Texans, and it all started about 9/11. They realized that Oklahoma had very cheap property taxes and the interest rates are low. We got about 3,300 luxury homes up here that rent. The average value is north of $1 million. 20 years ago, the highest priced house that had ever sold in the county, and the county's bigger than Rhode Island. It's about 60 wide, 90 long. The highest priced house that had ever sold in our county 20 years ago, about $385,000. Homes are selling now for well over $1 million. It's also put a crush on our crunch on general labor. General labor here has become harder and harder to find. But my dad was a very straightforward guy, and he basically said, if we can't afford to have insurance for our people, if we can't afford to have benefits, we don't need to be in business. And I can tell you all the way back, and my memory goes back, to the early '80s when I came back and involved myself. We've always had a 401ks, health insurance, so on and so forth. My dad just was basically, it's just our responsibility. And if we can't put enough margin in there to have that, we don't need to be in the business. So he just kind of put his foot down.
Yeah, you're tracking right where I was thinking is I'd love to have our listeners know a little bit more. Like, what are some of the things you do to get some of that talent? Are you doing job fairs in your area and things like that? Or
like everywhere else, the pay scale has continued to increase. The nice thing about that, with that pay scale increasing, you also get there's a delta there to where you get a higher quality hand, and we get higher quality, better hands, and we are automating. We spend a lot of money each and every year on capex projects. This year alone, I think we had 3 major capex projects. One of them was a new robotic welding cell, because the cell we have now that has 3 robots welding and picking. We look back, it was '07. They came into my office one day and had a $35,000 PO to sign. And I said, "What's this for? Explain this to me." And they said, "Well, it's for a wiring harness for the welding robots." And I said, "We're not having any problem with them. Why are we spending this money?" And they said, "That's why we want to spend the money, because it runs 20 hours a day, So let's see. One of the CapEx projects this year was the welding cell. Another one was
what are you looking at? Do you have a whiteboard there? You're pointing in it.
No,
it's just
our manufacturing facilities right across the street over
here. Oh,
here.
you can see it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so yeah, our site now, I think it was about 170 acres. We actually just sold a 120,000 square foot building last week. So I think we're down to about 500,000 square feet under roof and about 145 acres. So it's kind of a spread out place. When I started here, when I was 14 years old, my dad borrowed a D6 Dozer that had a pony motor on it, brought me out here and showed me how to start the pony motor and then start the big motor. We had 5 acres and we had no buildings. Over the years, this was an industrial park, and as businesses ebbed and flowed and came and went, we simply have bought everything we could possibly buy. So it's a great way for an American manufacturer to be able to stay in business. This building right here we're sitting in is 40,000 square feet. It was part of 42 acres that we bought in '09 for $175,000. So, we couldn't do the dirt work for the building. So we made some very good buys on some very large industrial property, which keeps our costs down, because although our wages are probably much greater than what our competitors have to pay in Southeast Asia, our productivity is tremendous. Great. So I think the other CapEx that we did was a new plasma torch. The plasma torch we had was about, 15, 20 years old. What we want to do is have the reliability of the equipment. So we're always investing. This company is my favorite investment that I have. And I give my heart, soul, and my wallet to it.
Well, wasn't that you that was quoted as this? It's like your erector set, and you don't have to wait around for a building or for a big meeting. You just go out and do it, right?
And we've innovated a lot. And to be a great innovator, you have to have a great tolerance for failure. And we have had a lot of failures. But what we're very good is we're very precise. My dad was a pilot. My granddad was a pilot. My son was a pilot. Brandon's about to be a pilot. I've got 40 years of flying and 10,000 hours. I think you have, when you fly, you have to be precise. A lot of that lends itself quite well to being a businessman. A good pilot is a good businessman. A good businessman is a good pilot. Some people say, a businessman shouldn't be flying. No, he's got to be able to put that to the side, get in the cockpit, and that's what your priority are. My point to that matter is we document those failures and we analyze them backwards like a plane crash, and we look at them in pieces. What did we do good? What did we not do good? What did we learn? If nothing else, if you just have an absolute catastrophe and everything fails, what did we learn out of that? Mm-hmm. And that's what we have steadily built on top of each other. slowly and surely. And so when we go into a customer and we can look and tell him how much the tire can handle as far as load, speed, we can tell them in what ambient temperature, we can tell them the deflection, we can tell them a lot of the people, because this is kind of a low end industry, and you get a lot of somewhat people that might not be as precise as we are as concerned or dedicated to it as we are. You get people that were selling trailer houses last year and they're selling cars next year. Our whole life, and in fact, I'm sitting here looking at a guy walking up here to me, Larry Sargent. Larry came to us right out of college. He's a few years younger than me. He's dedicated his life. Between the three of us, there's probably not three people in the world that know more about large off-the-road solid tires and how to make them work and get them out there working correctly the first time. We make the mistakes here. We don't put the mistakes out in the field. And and part of that is our long-term relationship with the Gerdau plant in Midlothian, which was Chaparral Steel. One of the largest plants in the world, the most abusive. They can tear up an anvil with a feather, is what my dad used to tell me, And I mean, they're, less than 200 miles from here. They're a 20-minute flight for us. We lean on them quite heavily for R&D, and we have learned a lot from them because they're Texans, because they do things to the absolute max, and they stretch us, and that stretching makes us better. So we never look at it. And I mean, you can go back to it biblically, in fact, and look at it in the Bible. Be thankful for your problems, because your problems is what allows you to see an innovation. It's exactly the same way my dad came up with this whole ideal. And we can go back to the aviation and the problems. He left Houston one night, put the flaps down, couldn't get the flaps up, landed in a Lufkin, and took a piece of paper out and drew on a napkin a piece of paper, came home and visited with me about it. 89, I think we built our first tire. Gerdau, which was Chaparral at that time, was our first and favorite account that we really love them. And you can't imagine how an abusive of a place it is.
Yeah.
So
what did he draw on the napkin?
He basically just drew the first design of our tires out. And that was an expanded rim. So the rim was bigger, and you bonded the rubber to it. Right down the street here, 40 miles is a Red River Army Depot. They redo all the bogey wheels for the tank tracks. He went down there and got with an engineer, and hired him to come up on Fridays. He worked with us on quality and procedures on how to do it. And from that, we've become ISO. That we've been ISO probably, 15 years or more. Some people look at it as a hassle. I look at it as an owner as checks and balances. Go back to the flying again. I mean, Lindbergh was all about checklist, and that's what ISO's done for us. It's made us accountable, and it's made it to where, I think in our promotional video, I said, when was the last time you heard of a Setco tire failing? Literally, we put tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of tires out a year. 4 or 5 tires, maybe that wasn't even our fault, but we're going to take care of it anyway,
Right. Probably wasn't, honestly.
Our quality is unbelievable.
Right.
And that's what we strive for.
Well, it makes sense. Your correlation to flying. You want everything perfect, right? I mean, I just got back from vacation and my entire family sitting with me, and we got back and my dad said, "Praise the Lord." When I saw him, I was like, "What's the matter, Dad?" And he's like, "Well, you had everything I love in that airplane. And anything goes wrong, that's terrible. It all happens all at once. I lose everybody." And I'm like, "Oh, Dad, we're here, da da da." But it makes perfect sense, and I do like that correlation.
Prior to 9/11, the only other mode of transportation that was safer than the airlines is an elevator. But if you got on a plane every year, this prior to 9/11, 35,000 years you have to get on a plane before you would statistically be in a plane crash. And I'm talking about on airlines.
Wow.
Wow. So it's a very, very safe. It's a very mature. It's a very by the book. They they have ATP standards, airline transportation standards, and type ratings. I've got a couple of type ratings in a jet. I know it's hell to study for, and I hate it when I'm doing it, but I'm very proud afterwards. And when I get into some weather, I've got the tools to fight my way out of it. Let's see. Okay. Yep. Here's what we're going to do. And we get a plan and we go. So,
well, and I like the analysis of the crash as well. You know, like all of us have pitfalls and failures and things that we can learn from, right? And we invest money and maybe it doesn't pan out the best way, and we end up, retooling or pivoting and going a different direction. What are some of the things that you've seen recently? I mean, I hate doing this, but I do it every time. Post COVID, did you guys everything run through okay through COVID? Did your workforce, disappear on you, or did they come back? Or
oh no, I mean our workforce stayed with us, and we were, there's different people than in COVID, and for us, we have a great plant manager. He came from a Fortune 500 company. He brought such an incredible culture to this infant business in some ways, even though, we've been doing this for, 35 plus years. But he brought such, and his saying is, we need to put some bookends on it, and without becoming arguing religion or politics or anything, I actually believed what, Fauci was saying, and we abided by it to the best of our ability. And we tried to state ourselves and everything else. What COVID did for us, and it's the first thing that our tremendous plant manager told me when he walked in the door probably 2 or 3 years ago. And he said, we got to get rid of the hard labor. Anything that you break your sweat on, anything that's a strain, we have to identify it. We have to eliminate it. We have to figure out how to automate it, streamline it, and get rid of the labor. When that happened, when COVID happened, and I must tell you, that's probably without a doubt the most terrified I'd ever been, because I could actually see the whole company getting COVID at one time. I could envision that how it could spread so rapidly. And I'm a voracious. I wish I could say reader. I'm not. But I am married. My first and favorite wife, a librarian by trade, and she can read a book that thick. Can't ask her anything about it, but I like to watch a lot of like History Channel and stuff. The AIDS epidemic. They couldn't understand the AIDS epidemic because they were looking at something that was so incredible. It went back to a male steward that was working for South African Airlines. And so, he's in Joburg one night, he's in New York, next night he's in Sydney, and all of a sudden, within 6 weeks, AIDS had exploded all over the world, and it came back to this one guy. I started thinking about that. In fact, I wrote letters about it. I was heavily involved in YPO at the time, Young Presidents Organization. I used their great minds. We put a strategy together, but we, for the most part, followed the government guidelines, because we've got just under 200 people here. And it doesn't take long to do the calculations to think about the hub and spoke, if I interact with this guy or that guy. But back to it, COVID was wonderful for us. I spent 12 hours a day on the floor. I probably lost 20 pounds of the 50 I need to lose plus. My knees didn't like it as well. But at that point, we made some major changes in our operation directly due to COVID that we are reaping the benefits of today. So, a tire like this with 20.5 sitting behind us weighs 2,000 pounds. 2,000 pounds, we'll build that tire in 4 minutes now, off the builder and gone. I'll build, 4 of those an hour, one with one guy. We're so much more productive than we ever were before. And
so the automation that was birthed from this conversation with your plant manager. So we're seeing more and more of that too. I visited the manufacturer of our Crumb rubber facility plant, and they were adding equipment. It sounds a lot like yours. They had CapEx for different projects over the next 3 or 4 years that I think each one of them had some sort of robot or automation involved in it.
Just to clarify, you've got a Crumb factory?
So we are coming online in October. September, October, we're buying a Jomar out of Middlebury, Indiana.
None better than those guys.
Yeah, they are the best. Thank you for saying that.
Levon and Lamar are the greatest people, and they're the only people I've ever met that's quite as crazy as I am at their at how integrated that they are. They're fully integrated, just like we are. They've got the trucks, they've got the processing, and they make their equipment. And when it breaks, even if they sold somebody, they're very much like us. They apologize. We've got another one on the way. We're not sure. In fact, I've been trying to buy a 4-shaft shredder from them for about 2 or 3 years, and they're not just quite ready to share it with us. We want to grind some of our 1-inch stuff down to like 1/4 inch. And I went and looked up in Pennsylvania at a couple of them running a couple of the Raptors. And I've been to their place up in Indiana. I got to tell you, they're just fantastic people.
Yeah, isn't it great?
I'm telling you, they've got 4 big shredders running down there at the cement plant down in Midlothian that grind the tires. So they bring tires in there and grind them, and then they're using them as a hog fuel, I guess, for the cement. But there's nobody else I've ever met in this industry that is more grounded and straightforward than those guys are.
And that's amazing to hear you say that, because that's actually a connection that wasn't brought about for this meeting. So I got Brandon's number from Brett Eckhart, the owner of United Metals Recycling, which is our parent company to Tire Reclaim. And we have visited Tom Parker out of All American Tires in Dallas Fort Worth, All American Tire Recycling. He told us there's none better than the Raptor and the Levon and Lamar and those guys. So we jumped on a plane. We went to his facility in Texas, toured that, went to another facility in Oklahoma and toured that. Then we went up to Indiana and toured those 9 machines running at Incor or Intech, which is Levon's company. So it's a really nice, full loop circle to come back and have you a guest on our podcast is confirming what we saw, what we witnessed, which is a true American company, much like yourself, out there hitting it hard and taking care of their customers on a day-to-day business. And the shop was perfect. That's the automation I was just referencing. They have a lot of robots they're using and doing more and more every day. So, yeah, that's pretty cool that's all come connected.
Another guy that I went to visit is Troy Hess up at, can you pronounce that?
Tongo
Enterprises Tire Recycling. They're out in the middle of Pennsylvania, Liverpool, Pennsylvania. He was very gracious with me and let me look at a couple of these Raptors running. And that was about it. And I mean, I think he's very innovative. It looks like something out of one of those Mel Gibson movies, going up to see him. He's got conveyors that are running, 500-600 feet out there. I mean, he might be the best guy I've ever seen as far as a processor. And he guards it very closely, and I don't blame him.
What's that name? Can you spell that company name?
Tongo is, I believe, is how you pronounce it.
Yeah, they're up in Pennsylvania. Troy Hess. That man might actually be as knowledgeable of a feller that I've ever talked to. When he starts talking about you've got to be able to do the airflow and things that he shares with us as far as shredding stuff, that water is a lubricator. I was highly impressed with that. That's the funnest thing about my job. I get to go see some real A players, and some of that rubs off on me and inspires me. And even though now, let's say I turned 59 at the end of the year, I've got a bunch of friends. I was talking to a girl that I graduated with in high school. She's a dentist. She said, well, I'm just working 2 days a week and everything. And I'm like, that just doesn't make any sense to me. I want to work like crazy because there's not that much left in me. I mean, right. 10 years from now, am I still going to be doing this? Well, if I can get my health in a little better shape, maybe. It's like a good friend that was a number 6 at Southwest. He said, yeah, I think we're going to hang it up. I said, well, you got another 6 months. He said, yeah, but I'm not going to make you more and everything. I said, dude, you're crazy. I said, 7 months from now, you're going to be wishing you was in a 737 coming out of LaGuardia, with all the de-ice on and saying, yeah,
Yeah, you'll miss it. In other
I,
words,
I mean, I'm going to retire like Paul Smith over at Joseph Smith, is a big recycler over in DC. I love Paul and that whole bunch there. He said, I'm going to retire 24 hours after they close the coffin on me. And I'm going to be the same way. I want to be here as long as I can be a advocate for these guys. I can't. I'm overwhelmed with the youth that we're able to pull in, and how excited they are about this. This is the greatest gift you could ever imagine. It's just unbelievable. We're right here on the Red River. Texas is just right there. We've got a ranch in Texas, high fence place. One of our good friends, in fact, I noticed last night, he would have turned 100, but it was Carroll Shelby. Carroll Shelby, I probably became close friends with him in his late 80s. He was so unbelievable, full of optimism, and was going to do this, and we're going to do this, and so on and so forth. He just was a real character. That's the guy I want to be. I want to be the cheerleader when I'm 89 years old and saying, I like that, guys. I think that's going to work. Or have you considered what's going to happen here? I never want to be a naysayer.
yeah.
And this company is like owning a ranch in a lot of ways. It's mine for this time, but this company, we're designing it to well outlive me, and the people that are here, and the people that we're putting in place, for a long run. And
Well, and I've heard the future is in your mindset, and there's some things that you're doing with sustainability now, that you're getting into some recycling yourselves. And obviously, if you know Joe Mar and the Raptor, then that we'll be recycling 100% of our tires very soon as well. And what's going on in that realm for you guys?
I think we're particularly blessed, and maybe somebody else is, but it's like I look at my wife, at a distance or something, and I almost have to pinch myself. How did I get to marry such a wonderful person? I wouldn't be half the man I am without her. I think about how blessed we are. We have basically, our tires are made mostly out of one compound, and so it's recyclable. I'm looking at a freight truck just backed up here, an old Dominion truck. It's got some super single, what,
Michelin's
455,
Yeah.
70 or 0.25s. There's 20 different compounds in that tire. There's a bead compound. There's a sidewall compound. There's a casing compound. There's inner tread and all this. You've got so many different things working here. It's like a gumbo of compounds there. Most of them are not made for wear, and when the tire's worn out, most of the wear compound is gone. It's evaporated into the ozone. I understand. We're so much more blessed than that, and we've always built a pure, high quality tire. We have a lot of competitors that build a lot of tires with a lot of fillers in them. Those are not recyclable. That's something that goes to the cement plant. Our tire, from the very top to the very bottom, is the same compounds, and it's always been a little more costly to make it that way. But now we're sitting here looking at, we got 50 million pounds of rubber sitting here that we're sitting here grinding. We've got SSI's largest shredder that they make sitting there breaking them down. We break them down with excavators, and we get them into manageable sizes, and we bring it down to about a 40 mesh or smaller. So, and we're doing that cryogenically because all of our compounds are 100% natural rubber. So, if you're going to get in the crumb business, you're either going to be ambient or you're going to be cryogenic from the two angles I know of, at least.
Mm-hmm.
If you know something different, I'm all ears.
No. Ambient is where we're at. Yeah.
The problem is, the ambient is going to get you down to about 10 or 15, maybe 20, 25. And if you put in a cracker mill, and you'll get on down a little further. We've always been told by everybody I've ever spoken to that you can't expect to get this 100% natural rubber down lower. If we can get it low enough, we can get it into the product. So let's just take a small tire, a Bobcat tire. If the optimum weight's 200 pounds, we can actually make that tire 202 pounds with the same parting line and everything else. We can make a denser product, and it's the exact same compound. We did this in an effort to compete against some of our more low-cost competitors, but it's come back to be the most unbelievable thing we can ever imagine, because we have a very incredible tracking program that we can track. We can track those truck tires. We can track the tires on this Kubota I'm looking at, this golf cart here. We can track anything, but we use it for our specific needs. It's a system that was designed and built by us. Brandon joined us a few years ago, coming from a GCR, which is a Bridgestone Firestone company. They had TreadStat. We've taken the best of the best of the best and taken it even further. We've actually found out that this recycled product is lasting longer than the original. Now, if I go in here and just get truck tires with the bead package and the bead compound and everything else, I don't think I could expect that same results.
Right.
But because we're using a closed loop recycling program, we're killing it with it.
So our tire is now 100% recyclable. The entire wheel, tire, everything. It's the only one that we're aware of that's 100% recyclable
in the world ever that we know of,
right,
on a somewhat large scale basis.
Well, and the components you're talking about and that comparison to one versus multiple, it makes perfect sense, right? You would be the most set up to be able to do a 100% recycled product, which that is the closed loop you mentioned. These are all keywords, right? Everybody likes to throw around sustainability. To me, sustainability is exactly what you just said. You found out it's going to last longer. And I'll bet there's probably some pretty good cost savings involved too in some of the areas.
Maybe one day we'll get to see that. The entry cost into this stuff is steep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there've been some learning curves in that. And you buy a lot of nitrogen, you buy a lot of hammers, and the problem is with ours, it seems like we never can break it down far enough to where we can pull the metal out of it. We do a lot of damage. Whereas if you had, if you were just recycling factory waste, you wouldn't expect that.
Right.
But if you know much about our products and the places we run, I mean, we run in shredders, so you're going to get the valve out of a 58 Chevy. You're going to get the spring out of a 2023 Dodge that got ran over. You're going to we get a whole ton of it, and the non-ferrous is as challenging for us as anything to remove out of the scrap, because our eddy current system does not fully do a good job there, and the magnets, it's just a challenge.
Right. Well, what I like to look at too sometimes in this, and what I was referencing as well, is opportunity cost. So what would be the alternative to recycling and reusing those products? Is it, landfill? Is it, just getting rid of it some other way? Cement kilns. So, the cost and effect of all of that as well.
It's landfill or going to the cement kilns, basically what it is. And the BTU value is extremely high. We've never actually been involved in selling any of the product at this time. We are going to have to get there as we have competitors' tires to dispose of as well. Understand that's a whole nother little syndicate unto itself. The one person that sells it, you got to sign your life away with them, I understand. I don't know much about that, but I'm curious.
Yeah.
But we actually are developing. We've got a new 40,000 square foot building over here about, I don't know, probably about a mile across the campus here. And in fact, we just polished the floors. We brought it up to about a 400. So like if you walk in a Home Depot, you see that shine. We just stuck our head in there. I did that because start from the 30s, that's over 9 decades, we've had a handful of fires in my family. And I can't remember any one of them that was ever pleasant or good. So a great guy that does some work with me said, if you remove the fuel, you remove the hazard.
Makes sense.
So it's just like when we go to crane school, the first thing, and we have a great team here, probably the greatest I could ever imagine of our journeymen. And one particular guy in there is Gary Branson. My plant manager before used to have a bit of history in rigging or something like that. Gary would come to me. I hope this is not too public, but he would say, "Hey, Buck, don't you and Dwayne need to go down to Midlothian, or don't y'all need to go to Houston or somewhere?" In other words, take the plant manager, get him out of here, and let us do it. So basically, the team basically gets together. Everybody kind of has to have a thumbs up that we're ready to make the pick, and that's kind of the mentality that we like to go with here.
Fantastic. Well, we're running out of time, guys. I was just wondering, is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Any plugs for anybody? You've got some names you dropped there. I'm sure those are some super key people. I know Brandon didn't get to talk to us a whole lot, but he warned me of that once Buck got in the room.
Brandon ought to talk about our TMS, because he's really taken it over and ran with it. I mean, he's done a fantastic job with it.
Yeah, just quickly, Craig, our tire tracking software is called Setco TMS. It's very innovative. It's all done in-house. We have our own programmers that work on that, and it's the premier tire tracking software in the industry.
If our customers will follow that, and it really takes 5 measurements throughout the life of a tire. So if you take a loader tire in a shredder, say it gets 10,000 hours, if you'll follow those cues of how to rotate the tires, you will cut your tire cost 20%. How does that benefit us? I'd like my customers to get the greatest value they possibly can. So what I don't want to do is see a set of tires come in and 2 of them on the wheel, and 2 of them got a ton of rubber that they didn't get to wear out. I want them to waste nothing but the cluck, as Bo Pilgrim used to say. I don't want to lose anything but the cluck of the chicken. I want them to get all their money's worth, and we can help them do that.
Yeah,
and we can help keep their drivetrain within ASE specs, American Society of Engineers specs. It'll save on planetaries, transmissions, things of that nature.
Yep, absolutely.
I told you I'm passionate about tires. I'm telling you, you could ask me that or about my grandkids or something like that. I can go on for days. I love it.
Well, I would like to know, what was your wife's name?
Natalie. My person favorite.
Yeah, so that's the one that I like to bring that name up first and foremost. You'd already given her plugs, but I'm pretty sure if you're anything like me, I wouldn't be here without a great woman in my life.
I can remember being over in Perth, Australia, about as far, or in Joburg in the mines or something, and thinking to myself, I don't have to worry about my family. I don't have to worry about my kids. She's got the home fire going.
Yeah.
And at the same time, she had to worry about much herself, except having dinner ready at a reasonable time.
Yeah. And Brandon, you've got Kirby there at home, right?
That's right. Kirby, same thing. Taking care of my 2 kids, Whitley and Walker, and yep. Can't do any of this without her.
Yeah. And Buck, you got family there at the plant, right?
Well, the unfortunate thing is, we lost our son about 7 years ago on our ranch in an airplane crash.
Oh no.
24 years old, just graduated college.
Oh, so sorry.
About a year after that, my desire for this company to well outlive me is beyond your imagination. I don't, I could easily sell it out and do something else, but that 7 years, I wouldn't have survived very well without it. So I owe a lot to this company myself, just to have the sanity to have something to do, to go to work and everything else. Since then, my son-in-law was a Dodge dealer out in West Texas, Hamilton, Texas. And, I just pulled the P&L out and said, here's what we do.
That's Machell, right?
Yeah. And his dad owns, all the major dealerships. He owns from Cadillac, all the U.S. dealerships. It's a big organization that his dad has. And his dad literally came from nothing. His dad really didn't grow up with a sure enough dad. It's an admirable thing that Chaz Bear has done in his lifetime. But like any father and son, you can have a little bit of a rubber something. And I know my daughter was happier to be back here. We were happier to have her home. Mitchell came in and joined us, and God forbid something was happening to my daughter and my son-in-law. I would want to keep Mitchell. He's just he brings a lot. He's very mild, and he brings a lot to the company. I'm
Brennan is your daughter's name?
Yeah,
Brennan.
I'm a very direct person, and sometimes that can be offensive to people. But at least you know what I'm thinking when I leave. But I'm working on that. My toolbox started out very, very thin. This great manager that we hired, Tony Cochran, I'm telling you, he can get more out of people charming him than I ever could hollering at him.
Right.
Well,
we're all learning. It's
yeah,
basically a big lesson of life.
it is.
Yeah.
I wish I had this perspective when I was 20, 25 or something.
No. Don't look back.
Yeah.
It's all forward from here. Well, guys, I sure appreciate your time. I'm gonna go ahead and close it up on that. It's really nice to meet you, Buck, and Brandon. Nice to talk to you again.
I can't wait till you get the Raptors in.
Yeah. So I don't know if y'all been to Idaho. I've been to Oklahoma and Texas a lot. I've got family all over that area. But as much as I'd like to come see you, I'd love for you guys to come and see us as well up here in Idaho.
Is it northern Idaho?
No, we're southwest, central, and eastern Idaho. Yeah, we basically run all along the bottom of the state. So Boise would be the major city, Twin Falls, and Pocatello. But anyway, we're here, and we're going to start putting that all together. I've actually got 2 men in Texas right now looking at dust collection systems as well. Conveyors, the whole system for our friends at All American Tire Recycling, and we've got guys over there studying the plant right now.
I'll tell you the other one who's also in the scrap metal business, but up in not British Columbia, Alberta. There's a great family up in Alberta that has one of the neatest Glenn Cohen, Alberta Environmental Rubber Products. You want to talk about a slick operation. They take it from truck tires, basically is what they're doing, and they grind them down and get them down into powder. And he's got 2 dual lines running, so in case one breaks down, he's got 2 of everything. So he's going through a primary shredders, and he's going through
grinder,
some sort of a grinder, and then he goes on down, and he ends up at some cracker mills, and that just keeps getting rotated. And he told me the trick on the cracker mill, because I had a cracker mill. We kind of tried it a little bit. We weren't as successful. He's got some of those made down there in Sarasota, Florida, and it's got 2 different gearboxes on it. One of them's running 19-1. So he's really doing something. But out of all the places I've ever been, it's huge. You ought to look this place up. And Glenn is a fantastic guy to deal with.
Yes.
But their main business, I believe, was scrap, and they got into the tire recycling business because I think the Alberta government kind of said, "We're going to do this. Are you interested?" And I'm telling you, he had a neat rule too, or his main guy: cut it in half every time. Every process, after you go through the primary, cut it in half again. If it's 4 inch, cut it to 2. If it's 2, cut it to 1. If it's 1, cut it to a half an inch, and just keep going down. It's not rocket science. It's keep breaking that thing down any darn way that you possibly can to get it down to the desired product. We're getting it down into dust. We're getting it down to talcum powder.
Yeah, that's where we're headed. We got cracker mill on order, and we'll be, producing whatever the highest bidder is, to be honest. So that's what we'll produce. But we can go all the way down to the, $32.99, or we can come up to $10.20. We have the ability to do all black rubber. But I don't want to get off into a deep networking conversation. We'll wrap up this podcast, and maybe we jump on another call together.
Sure. I'm curious who you bought the cracker mill from.
It's all Jomar.
Oh, it's all Jomar. Okay.
Yep. It'll be all one complete unit.
Lamar must love you more, because I tried to send a couple of rolls up to him. He said, "No. I got to go up there."
Maybe we got the right track. I guess we met the right guys at the right time.
Yeah, you're probably spending a lot more with him than I do, though.
Oh, I don't know about that, but
But you know what's great about those guys is they share all of their technology. They're wide open, and when he comes here, I'll let him look at anything he wants to.
yeah, I'm seeing that. I'm seeing that more and more. The Tom at All American and David Riley in Oklahoma, and I mean everybody, Levon and Lamar, they've all just wide open. All in anything, honestly, anything we need, and tell us the best hotel while we're visiting. I mean, it's just been fantastic. But all right, anything else, gentlemen?
No, thank you.
God
so
bless
much.
you. Thanks for being on, and enjoy that nice weather in Oklahoma. And we'll talk to you soon.
All righty, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you.